that. And I have to say,
I am going live. Everything you say is being recorded.
Perfect.
Go ahead, though.
But I have to say, right in the middle, right after I decided, then, I'm on the conference call with all of you at the Confluence, and
Yep.
I still have no idea what's going down. I just think, oh, cool, I get to talk to everybody. And then Tim started talking, and you started talking about me, and I still was kind of, what's going on? Well, we don't need to talk about me that much, and then this just a high accolade of the honor. Thank you so much.
You're
so
welcome.
grateful.
I don't suppose it's arrived yet.
It hasn't, and it may have gotten there yesterday, today, but they're closed today. The UPS store is closed today, so
So it will come. I actually waited 4 or 3 months for mine after it was awarded. So.
It'll be a great day whenever it gets there.
It has to do when Tim can get down to the UPS store. We are online. We have some people watching, and I wanted to first of all say the first thing that I'm happy about Confluence 23, which was that I awarded Jordan the first Water Bearer award for 2023 for his stellar and consistent support of this program on Sunday mornings. I don't know if I could have done it without him, and so the fact that Jordan has been here and been my counterpart religiously for about 2 years now, it's a long while, is really appreciated. And
here.
Wonderful, Jordan. So you were zoomed in for the award, or were you there physically?
No, I was on the phone. Yeah. Which made it, I think, more surprising because there was no read of the room of what's about to happen, and it was phone and silence, and I'm kind of, what's going on here? So it was pretty stunning. It was the experience was unfolding, and you could kind of feel it. But what are these plate tectonics moving around under my feet? So I was on the phone.
Can you say a little bit about what the Water Bearer Award is?
Skip.
Well, it's a year ago, or 15 months ago, 16 months ago, when we started the, well, first of all, let me show it to you because I now have it on my screen. So let me share my screen. The Water Bearer is this image, which is a symbol of the Aquarian age, in which the heavens pour out wisdom to mankind. The feather is not a part of it. The feather is a gift that my wife gave to every member of the Confluence, which involves a postcard and a gold pin that is a feather. And by synchronicity, this feather was found in the building the morning that I passed those postcards out. And so there were 2 other Water Bearer awards. One is the Reverend Judith Stone, and let me find them. Let's see, I think we did this. Yeah, here we go. All right, so I'm not going to share with you the whole thing, but here's Skip with the Reverend Judith Stone on the left side and Leah Watson on the right. And Leah, both of them are members of our advanced reading group, and so we see them every Wednesday. And Judith took the responsibility to organize the money and sort of be the treasurer for Confluence. And so she needed to be recognized. And these are Tim Holmes bronze sculptures, so they're quite heavy. You can see Leah's arm flexing to hold on to it.
Yeah.
And Leah is sort of our rock. She is incredibly dedicated to Colleen Kibert, and has been a part of my life since November of 2021. And she has supported me with various psychotherapy help. She's not a psychoanalyst, but she's a very wise woman, and she and I have talked on the phone a few times, and she's been very helpful to me when I was going through some struggles last year in school. And so there they are. The reason that they're different, the award that Leah got, what is the original water bearer. That's the original piece that Tim made before he decided on the patina to put on it. So this is the patina that comes on it if you buy one of the remaining. I think there are about 35 of them left in the series. There's a series of 45, and Judith received number 11 of 45. And this one is not in the series, but it's the original, and Leah is certainly an original and one of my favorite people on earth. Let me see if I can show you a couple more images that are of note from the Confluence. We had to take this picture missing about, I'm not even sure how many were missing, 5 or 6 people, because Colleen had a fainting spell on Saturday the 14th, and emergency help was called from the Mount Madonna Center. And unfortunately, the Mount Madonna Center is 30 minutes from help by 911. But ultimately, we called the professionals from 911 to come up the mountain, which is a very challenging thing because you're coming from sea level to 1,900 feet in about 3 or 4 miles. It's a very difficult road. It's not the most difficult I've ever faced, but at night, I did it at night once, and it's really scary at night. So anyway, let's see, who can I point out here?
And this is the artistic, the creative piece that came through.
This is one of the 2 pieces. This is the Rocky, and this is nowhere near done because we, unfortunately, the 2 people that were from Maryland, who are Bronte DeShiel, who's here, and Comasel Brown, who is here, had to leave Saturday night. And so I wanted to catch the picture before they left. But going across here, this is Diane Shamam, who has been an advanced reading group member forever. This is Jessica Lee, who's one of Colleen's dear friends and supporters. She's been her assistant for many years. And and she provided some of the transport. I rented a car also and provided transport. This is Bronte de Shiel, who came in from the Eastern Shore of Maryland. This is, let's see, I'm always getting these two ladies mixed up. I think this is Donna Runnels and this is Maureen. And this is Ryan Miller, who was at Confluence 22. In fact, these four people were all in Confluence 22. Then this is Brendan Walls, who is a member of my Annapolis group, but who has been traveling across the United States with a trailer for the last 4 months. And he has a red dot on his head because he attended the light ceremony at the Hindu temple that's at Mount Madonna. This is a young lady whose grandfather was a great friend of Colleen's, and she wanted to see what was going on. And the same story is here with this lady. Let's see, this is Robin, and this is Sarah. She's from British Columbia. And then this is Maya, who was, again, one of the close friends of Colleen, who did a lot of our promo work. This is Sal Brown from Annapolis, who is a famous mural artist here in Annapolis. This is John Jackson, who played the rabbi last year with me, and I hope we'll play the rabbi again. This is Sherry Loveler, who's now married to John. They got married after Confluence. In fact, they got married about in May, I think. And this is Diana and Paul Maggiotti. And Diana is a very close friend of Colleen's, and Paul has been in the group for many years. He also has a dot. I had one the day before this picture was taken because I attended at 6:30 in the morning. And then this is Judith again, and this is Penelope Ryder, Penelope Ryder from London. She flew in from London for the event. So anyway, that's all of us. Let's see, let me look for some other worthwhile pictures. This is the other image that we did. Let me see, I don't know if this is a selectable one, but this one was led by Sherry. And it actually is longer. This piece of paper is 24 feet long, and so it's this plus another 8 foot chunk, which I'll show you in a minute. Okay, here, let's see.
It looks like you use different materials for each of the murals.
Yeah, well, we use the same materials, but well, not quite, because Sherry uses an Oriental style, which involves brown walnut ink, and also black ink, and which is calligraphy material. And she's a calligrapher by trade, and then she used my same watercolors also. So all the color except for brown and black in this is from my same watercolors. And then I think we have there's a picture of everybody without the things.
Right.
Okay. And as I said,
and which one is Tim? Where's Tim?
Tim didn't make it. Tim was Tim had COVID and couldn't come.
Sorry.
And Sherry had, in preparation for doing the big mural, Sherry had done a smaller piece with everyone. This one is particularly noteworthy because it's the Ouroboros, and what Sherry's trick here is to use a white wax pencil and you write some secret onto your painting first with this white wax, and then you do your image. And so this is
Wonderful.
a wonderful piece by a woman named Meritt. I don't recall her last name. She was not present for the picture. She was with Colleen, I suspect. But anyway, you can see the Ouroboros there very clearly. And
Wonderful.
let's see, there's a Hindu temple up there. So this was a sculpture made by the founder, who was a Hindu monk. And this is Hanuman and Ganesha, and I'm not sure who that god is there. But this is the temple, and his name was Baba Haridas, and he lived his life in silence. And so the only way he communicated with people was with a white whiteboard hanging around his neck, and he would write notes. And so this temple got built after 40 years. He started this temple, actually 50 years. I mean, it must have been near 50 years, because when they got up there and they bought the land, which is 350 acres, they the first thing he said was, well, we have to have a school. And so they built a school, and then he said, well, we need a community center. And so they built a community center, and then they went on. And here's the eclipse that I don't know if you were aware that we were going to see an eclipse there, but
of course, yes.
Right. And so the sun is actually here, and the eclipse is on the right side with the sun on the right. What you see here is a sundog that is a figment of my camera's imagination, but it was wonderful because it gave me a real picture of the eclipse, whereas the sun was too bright for my camera, but it picked up this sundog. So
right,
you see it in different positions around the thing. And this is the view from Mount Madonna. This is Monterey Bay here in the distance.
Spectacular.
Yeah. All right. I don't know if there's much more I should be wasting our time with, because we're at 11.
Well, I'd like to say why this to me was such a high accolade of cherished honor is that it's for continued and consistent development and evolution of Jungian depth psychology in application in real life, and basically spreading the word, as it were. And my business is, I'm the founder of the Architecture of Well-Being, which is, I call kintsugi of self, the Japanese art of mending a broken vessel with gold, platinum, or silver lacquer. And the metaphor is that the vessel is better for having been broken when in the break, at the time of the break, it engages to be repaired and makes a golden connection with more perspectives. And I think then we are each better for being broken when we don't waste trouble and find treasure in the trouble. And just my work every day with tarot and astrology for kintsugi of self to help people find more of their life, their way, but actionably, not so abstractly. And in a sense, what Jung did, he didn't want you as a client your whole life. He wanted to teach you how to live your own life. So getting your driver's license for yourself, basically. And I think with Aquarius, the unconscious, I call the midnight ocean. And the wonderful magic of Aquarius in astrology is that it's an air sign. So there's the kind of, well, what gives with the water bearer as the name? And what it is Aquarius moves around with a wonderfully clean, empty vessel of self. And at any point can the magic of condensation or constellation psychologically can bring water out of thin air to fill that vessel. So it's the traveling light of you as self, not pulling the bags, you as self, the grace of the weight of your own body. And so to me, the honor was, it so aligns with my work, but it also, I think it's contributing as a catalyzing, amplifying force now. And just the recognition, and I'm always saying, oh, validation's just for parking. But, this was not that. This was, it poured into my vessel some magic, and that's unfolding. So I really appreciate the Aquarius aspect of the continued psychological development of Jung's work with all of us here and the people in the YouTube audience and the rest of the world.
This is what Jordan is talking about.
Yeah.
And,
Wonderful.
And this is Tim Holmes's piece, and it's meant to recognize Jungian analysts or anyone else who's bringing wisdom to humanity, hopefully. And the feather is not a part of it, but maybe it is.
Right.
And so anyway, I wanted to recognize Jordan's work here, and so that's why he has one of these coming by Pony Express, but it's a long way from Helena Taos, so he'll get it.
Strong horse.
Right.
Heavy culture, strong horse.
Right. No, and so I wanted to also show this this temple ceremony that I did go to on Saturday morning. They have a ceremony of light every morning at 6:30, and because I was from the East Coast, it was very easy for me to go at 6:30 because I was up at 3:30 on jet lag. But so anyway, this photograph was taken in the pitch dark. Okay, and my camera picked up more light than I could see at the time. But anyway, you can see the temple here, and I think this is Jupiter above it. And then I turned about face, and I think this is Venus on the other side. This is the morning star. So Venus was on the opposite 180-degree turn. And
those photos look like Magritte paintings, where you get that daytime low in the night or the nighttime low, and it's just the light feels like the kind of mystical quality of a Magritte, where it doesn't look odd until you realize that, oh, it's a nighttime scene in the house and a daytime sky, and when you finally catch it, it's wow, it doesn't look so discordant.
Yeah. So I'm not exactly sure what these bubbles are down here. That might be another illusion that comes out of my camera from these lights in the dark. But anyway, this is the main part of the temple, and there's a separate part, and so this is the priest doing the ceremony of light, and he's ringing the bell. So everybody on Mount Madonna can hear this bell. Then here's some Hindu images that the founder did. This is Ganesha, of course, the elephant god. And there were a couple of Indian Americans up there on personal retreat. So that's the shoulder you see there. This is this is Comicel's collage. We did a collage as well with Colleen. And this is a collage of one of her dear friends. And our dear friend, this is Rhea's collage. She's a member of our group. And I took a monoprint from the Rocky Ground for Tim, because Tim hadn't been able to be there, so I wanted him to have this. And here's Colleen describing the map of the self, and how when you do a collage, what you get is in the lower left, you end up with the creative wellspring, the dark side too, and then you have fantasies, ideals right above you. Yourself is in the middle. The mission, your mission is here, and finally your energy. And sometimes there's a block down here. So this is the conscious future. This is the unconscious, or this is the conscious past, I guess. And so everybody ends up doing this, whether they know it or not. And Colleen is our 91-year-old goddess who was the rock throughout this, and she was very worried about getting this together so it would be a success, which she rated it a success. But then just before we were taking the picture, unfortunately, she had a spell and had to have some help, but she stayed on the mountain, and she was having tests this week. Now, this is the room we did it in, and we had put all the collages up on the wall so everybody could see them. And these are setups for Sherry's single pieces that she guided us through. And then we had this circle, and in the back, across the back here, is where we had the Rocky laid out when we were working on it. And I'll just show this 28-second. This is a slow-mo going over the Rocky close-up so that you can have a sense of some of the work that was done. This was by no means finished, but
Skip, what do you mean it's not finished?
well, because we worked on it for another day and a half after this. So what you're seeing is the Rocky Ground, and that's not really the one I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you this one, but I want to turn it on its side, I think. Okay, let me show you this one. Okay, so there's some really interesting stuff here. So the Rocky Ground is put down, and then everybody outlines the boundaries, and you can, if you see something, you emphasize that. And so this is when people had started to do the boundary laying, but
Right.
But we later everybody added words. Okay, so the final pieces all have words in them. And everyone took their most cherished image from their collage and put it into the Rocky, glued it into the Rocky at the end.
How can you do that? You mean you superimposed it?
No, we literally took glue sticks and glued the pictures onto the Rocky at the end.
Right.
And then we cut it up, and we made everybody pick the piece they wanted to take home.
Wonderful.
From randomly, so that was their piece. And the interesting thing is this piece here, wait a minute, right here, this piece with the star, Paul Maggiati had spotted that. So when we were cutting the Rocky, he's cutting this piece out like it's going to be his, and Colleen says, no, stop. you're not getting that piece unless you pick it. And so there it is. Okay, I don't think there's anything else really to show
Right.
you.
And Skip, people were just outlining whatever they saw. They weren't outlining their own mark making, right?
That's correct. That's correct. Right.
And was there a gathering sense after making the Rockies that that
The
you
collective
felt
unconscious. Oh
yes, that you felt a sharing
definitely.
of what came through for all of you?
Definitely. Yeah. And that occurred throughout the weekend, right from the beginning when we started to make the Rocky. And so I think we want to do it again. And Maya, among others, has offered to be some young blood involved in it. And
Nice.
so, and another thing that we want to do is we want to perform the new play that Murray and Henry are putting together. We did a play last year, but it became all consuming and it really detracted from last year's Confluence. So this year we decided not to do it in Confluence, and we won't do another play in our actual Confluence, but because Murray and Henry are working on a second play that follows 1 year after the events of the first play, we want to do that again. And so far, I think I have John Jackson recruited to play Rabbi Beck again, and I will play Jung, and there are 3 other roles in the play. And
Skip,
it
were
happens
any
that at Mount Madonna, they have a stage with lighting. So anyway, so
Skip,
your question, Judith?
It was were any of the pieces of wisdom that emerged, or the sharing, or the interpretation, or the were they recorded, or was it just for the people that were there to hear what came through?
That was a failing this year because Wallace Boss, who is Colleen's son, was up there, and he was involved in the organization right from the beginning. And I assumed that he was going to video record the entire Confluence. He did not. And so the California committee that was supposed to be responsible for everything didn't include that in the organization, and that's a failing. So what we do have is the water bearer ceremony, because I wanted that recorded, and so Comacel recorded it for me, and so I have that. I'm going to post that on this YouTube channel today or tomorrow. I have to decide whether I need to do editing of it. I'm not going to do much editing, but I might have to take out a little bit. So there's anyway. I had Jordan and Tim Holmes on the telephone talking about the water bearer. I'm not sure how that came out in the video yet, because flying back from California, I couldn't hear it over the roar of the engines.
Right.
So
were there a few words of insight? Because this was really the collective unconscious as our planet, as our universe, as our cosmos is unfolding. Was there any few words you could share from your experience, Skip, or would like to hear? Or would that be for another time?
I mean, that all transpired unconsciously. Okay. And the
imprint.
The imprint was an unconscious one. And that was always the intention. And so people who were present could experience it, but you can't describe it outside of that event. What I can say is that, Colleen had warned that the Rocky could be quite dark, and as she said, I'm going to show you what we came up with. She had warned that the Rocky could come up very dark, and it might come up dark the first time, as hers had when she had done it just for herself. And when I saw this finished piece, including everyone put down ground in this, there is a little bit of dark area, and that happens to be in the creative wellspring that Colleen described in her map.
Yes.
But I found this image extremely positive. Okay, I was very pleased with this.
I hear you. I can resonate with that too. It's actually got a lot of light and
I mean, it's just an awesome piece. And the other piece was also, the other piece that Sherry led, using her techniques, I felt was also very positive.
That felt Milky Way.
Pardon?
Felt like a
That's good, Jordan. Yes,
of the Milky Way.
Yeah. Now, Sherry has a little dark area over here, but I'm not going to hold her to the map because this was a 24-foot long piece. And the way we did this, we had learned Sherry's technique by doing our own individual ones. And so what we did was we each stood in a place and started to do an individual one. And then after 5 minutes, we moved to our right. And so there were 4 movements, I think. And so at least 4 of us worked on every inch of this. And on
that's a
both
great
sides.
form. That's a wonderful form.
Right.
To move.
And so, I find this very, very positive and encouraging also, personally. And I was thrilled that I had Comasel and Bronte out there. I had invited them from Annapolis. Bronte teaches in the school system. She's a doctor of education, and Comasel is a famous muralist in our community. And they just added so much to the group, honestly, and I was
wonderful.
So glad. And they were all accepted, and
wonderful.
And they were very moved by the event.
And Skip, this one wasn't outlined. This one was just as this is the ground and the finished piece, right?
Yes, this piece was done in about 30 minutes maximum.
This isn't the Rocky format. This is Sherry's format. Beautiful.
This is Sherry's format, right?
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing this.
And so it's Sherry's methodology also. And so, this is not Rocky style, but it brings out the creative unconscious, the collective creative unconscious, in a different way, and a very successful way.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right. And so I'm very pleased. What I can say is that we did have a collective experience. It was extremely powerful to all of us out there. When you watch the video of me giving the Water Bear Awards, you will see how moved I was.
Yes.
And
and you are right now.
yeah, and the great, I mean, I was hurting through the whole of Confluence, because for a year and a half I've been trying to get Lana Shaheen to come to Confluence. She's a young Palestinian woman who Debbie and I have known since 2014, I think, when she was 15 years old. And she had this friend of mine. I had gotten involved in a play in Turkey with a Turkish novelist, playwright friend of mine, and she had written a play about a dystopian society, and I actually performed in this play back in 2012, 2013. And that play got the main Turkish participants indicted for murder for the Gezi Park event, and they were accused of causing Gezi Park, which is, and I played in every performance, so I was there, and I was denounced by name by the president in front of 1 million people.
Whoa, Skip.
However, I know that those people are still my friends, my dear friends, and they went into exile 6 weeks after the play closed. We performed it 25 times. It was advertised and described in depth on CNN Turk, and many Turkish authorities attended the play. We performed it 25 times between December 12th and April 14th, 2013, and nobody complained. But 6 weeks after, or no, I'm sorry, about 3 weeks after, they were accused of causing Gezi Park, which of course they didn't cause Gezi Park, but they were. And I mean, Erdogan blamed everybody for Gezi Park. He blamed Lufthansa for Gezi Park, among other things. He blamed me for it. And, what am I? I was a 70-year-old man at that time, sitting in my house in Annapolis, Maryland. I didn't have anything to do with Turkish politics, but anyway.
Well, and everyone knows you can't blame Lufthansa. The name is just too cool sounding.
Yeah. So anyway, when he started to blame them in the newspapers, they went into hiding in a gated community in which they lived, and finally, after 6 weeks, the two ladies went out to a drugstore and to pick up some things that they needed. And when they came out, across their windshield was written, I guess, in shaving foam, "You are dead." And so they went back into their community, packed their bags, and that night left for London and never came back. And so there are 4 exiles from that moment living in the UK, and they've been indicted for murder in Turkey. However, the United Kingdom will not honor an extradition request because they consider it a political stunt, and so it's not accepted. And so they're living their lives now for the last decade in the UK. And they're still dear friends of mine. But anyway, the playwright contacted me one day and said, well, there's this Palestinian girl who was then 15 who's doing some writing about a war that was happening then between Israel and Gaza. She lived in Gaza, and would I publish it on my website, archetypeinaction.com. So I started to do that, and we developed a relationship. And over the next several years, I managed to get her invited by the U.S. State Department twice to come to Indiana University. It was in a fellowship with Coca-Cola and the U.S. State Department for 7 weeks. She came and got educated in business at the Kellogg School at Indiana University, and then in 2019 she got a internship with Ilhan Omar in Congress. So she spent 7 weeks answering the phone and taking death threats for Ilhan Omar. Basically, that's what the calls were that they were getting. You know, we went through some tough times, and she had one more experience, which I'm not going to describe today, but in any case, she's been to the U.S. 4 times. And the 4th time she had to give up her permanent residence in Qatar, which she had earned after the Ilhan Omar thing. And so she had gone back to Gaza, and finally about a few months ago, about 6 months ago, she's been a painter and an artist throughout all this time. But anyway, she managed to get a new residency in Qatar. She was not able to get a visa to come for Confluence. And so she wasn't able to come. And the other person that wasn't able to come was Khushbu Khandaria from now Kerala. She used to live in Bangalore, but now she lives in the state of Kerala. And Khushbu and I had read the Bhagavad Gita together in tandem about 2019. It was 2019 or 20, I don't remember exactly, but over a period of 5 months, Khushbu and I read 3 translations of the Bhagavad Gita verse by verse, and she read it in Sanskrit verse by verse. And that there's a playlist of that entirely. And I only mention that because I wanted, before this meeting, I wanted to get out. I'll tell you what, I need to take a bio break for a couple minutes. And so I'm going to let Jordan carry forward, and I will come back with a copy of the Bhagavad Gita because it's relevant to The Magician, which we're going to read today.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah, the Confluence, I wish I would have been able to be there. It's just such a, I mean, you hear the people in the Confluence and the different groups. It's such a verdant, vibrant, group of, it's all this dignity and difference. We've all been through our respective hells, and we're like, yeah, whatever. Let's live instead. And so I think it's such a wonderful community that, soul garden kind of community, and it just feels right.
Were you not able to go because of vaccination, Jordan?
No, I needed a new engine for my car. So, out of nowhere, it's, there goes a big piece of winter. So in terms of, because my my business usually slows down a bit in the winter because
Yes.
my table and my lease is outside. And I have heated seat cushions, so it's like you're sitting in an Audi or a Subaru. But it's at the same time, if it gets down under 38 degrees, it's just not comfortable. So I typically do more events and such in the winter, but the week before, all of a sudden it's, oh, I have a cracked head. I need a new engine. So the thing is, it's kind of thing where, oh, the car's paid for and I don't want the insurance to go up and I don't want a car payment, but it's simpler if I just do this. So there was no logistically way for me to get there.
I understand. Yeah. It looks marvelous.
Morning. Love the clean shave.
No, thank you.
You're welcome. What inspired you to do that as winter approacheth?
I never go by the seasons. I'm kind of dyslexic that way. I go by what I feel. And it's funny, last Thursday, I was brushing my teeth and I just looked over in the mirror. It felt attached.
Awesome.
And instead of surface growing from the substance, I just looked and it was like a mask instead of a beard. And, immediately in that moment, I just started kind of giggling a little bit because it's like, oh, time for that to go. So I called up the woman who, monthly did all the beard trim, do that beard journey, and said, well, we've got my standing monthly on Tuesday. So instead of the 15 minutes, you need to please make this longer or more expensive or whatever. But you tell me what the appointment time is, and Tuesday the beard's coming off. So we had some fun with it because when I walked in, she said, this does make me sad. And then I said, well, I thoroughly appreciate that you said that. Thank you. And
did you offer she could keep it?
She didn't. Neither of us wanted to. And I kept an 18-inch. She asked me if I wanted to, and I kept an 18-inch braid ponytail after I cut my hair in college once. And at first it was really cool. And then it looked like I scalped myself. It's like this coup. And it started to be this like, what's this raccoon shelf? It looks creepy. So it's interesting. And then my cat actually found it and tore it. It was a cat toy. And I'm like, it just became this mess. So which I thought was funny because he would know best, So he did with it what I should have done with it. But she took some pictures along the way, different, just as she was demoing, and taking the beard off, making different styles. A couple of them looked like I get a free Harley with a picture. So she had fun and I had fun. And so but it was just, to me, you just notice something milestone in the moment that's more than just that moment. And you just happen to be at that nucleus point in the in-between space, and you just get it. So it was just time. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I'm much the same way with any, aesthetic, whatever shifts, right? Mm-hmm. You go by just that urge from within. Yeah. It looks good. And you have your work cut out for you to maintain it.
Well, that's the thing now. So now how many razors do I go through a day? Because
a day.
Well, no.
You better come back and save this conversation.
Well, I didn't shave for a couple of days after because you got to let the skin kind of, come back and toughen up a little bit. And because it's just been hidden. But I think it took 2.5, like almost 3. I mean, I go from here to here and it's like, it's already dull, it's just, so I don't know, maybe I'll get the straight razor thing, and I get a leather strap, and I don't know. So yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, oh, good news and bad news. Good news is we got all this work. What's the bad news? Now we got to do it. So
yeah. Actually, that's what Jung found at the end of the Red Book period, that now he had to do the work that he had
whole lifetime's work
mapped out. a whole lifetime's work. And I got oh, there it is. Okay, finally I found the picture of Philemon. Okay, so you may have heard of Philemon in conjunction with Jungian psychology. And so this is a share of page 154 of the Red Book. And what's significant here is this is his painting of Philemon, who represents the self. And you have to, if you have to look closely, because there's actually a temple down at the bottom, and he's standing on top of the temple, and Jung, the I, Jung, is kneeling in front of him in this image at the very bottom, right directly under his feet. And there are snakes, huge snakes in the woods and so on in this painting, which Jung did. And what's significant for the Bhagavad Gita is up here in the upper left-hand corner, the only place in the Red Book where Jung wrote in English. And what he wrote in English is a quotation from the Bhagavad Gita. And so I'll read it to you now. It's I don't, for some reason, I've managed to hide from myself my good copies of the Bhagavad Gita, so this is not my favorite translation of it, but anyway, it'll do. And it's just 2 verses. It's from chapter 4, Renunciation and Knowledge, and it's verses 7 through 8. So I'll just read it to you. Whenever there is a decline of dharma and ascendance of adharma, that's the negative of dharma, then, O son of the Bharata race, I manifest, incarnate myself in a body for the protection of the good, for the destruction of the wicked, and for the establishment of dharma. I am born from age to age. Okay, was predicted 5,000 years ago in the Bhagavad Gita. So the point is that no matter how bad things get in the world, if they get bad enough, then the self will present himself to somebody and work toward bringing back dharma, which is community. So we've seen the 20th century, which was quite horrific. 250 or 280 million people were killed in the 20th century by man's inhumanity to man. I was saying that at Mount Madonna, I was missing Lana, I was missing Kushbu, and I was also missing Tim very much, because he's been sort of our rod and our staff in terms of putting together Confluence, and it was just heart-wrenching that he couldn't be there with us. But anyway, and so was there any wisdom per se that came out of the Confluence? Maybe the wisdom is that yes, we can create an experience of the collective, and if the right people come, which they did, that experience can be quite positive. And yeah, that was really sad, Kathy, because we only found out on the Saturday we were headed out there, Saturday before, and so that was really sad. But anyway, so the significance of those two verses from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verses 7 and 8, is that it appears in the image of Philemon, and it appears in English in the Red Book, and it's the only place in the Red Book where there's English written by C.G. Jung. And so he obviously was giving us a big hint that he regarded the image, the presentation of Philemon as a vision that he was having, as equivalent to that part of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, but when he says, who would understand it, who would know, I don't know how many even Jungian analysts have even read the Red Book. You won't find it in the reader's edition, Kathy. It's only in the it's only in the folio version.
I'm just pulling this out for when you start reading. I have the big book, but I don't have room right here for it.
Right, yeah. And so anyway, this is the page of the actual calligraphy in the big book. And so it's up here in the upper left-hand corner that he quoted those two paragraphs or two verses from the Bhagavad Gita. And he's obviously making the appearance of Philemon as the equivalent of this prediction from the Bhagavad Gita. So, and I worked that out after, I don't know, 25 or so years of studying Jung. And so the point is that in the collective unconscious, if the collective unconscious gets out of whack and people start going around doing nasty things, then the opposite will happen, and Antiodromia will take place, and things will get better. And so I'm sorry I have not looked at the YouTube chat this morning very much, and I apologize for that. But let us get going on reading The Magician. Now, this is a very long chapter of Liber Secundus. It's also the last chapter of Liber Secundus, so I expect it to take maybe even a couple of months for us to get through, because it goes from 395, page 395, to page 458. So it's 63 pages long, this chapter, and it's describing Jung's encounter with Philemon. And Philemon, as many of you probably know, there's a Philemon Foundation now. Philemon represents the self. And so after Jung has been going through all these visions for over a month, then on January 27th, 1914, so 1 month and 2 days after his visioning started, is when he starts to encounter Philemon, the magician, he calls him. And Shamdasani's footnote at the title of this chapter is "The handwritten draft has instead 10th adventure," page 1061. So we may address that when we read the black books. But for now, this is the last chapter of the second book of the Red Book, and it takes us up to scrutinies and ultimately to the 7 sermons to the dead. But so I begin. The Magician. After a long search, I found the small house in the country, fronted by a large bed of tulips. This is where Philemon, the magician, lives with his wife, Bacchus. Philemon and Bacchus. Philemon is one of those magicians who has not yet managed to banish old age, but who lives it with dignity, and his wife can only do the same. Their interests seem to have become narrow, even childish. They water their beds of tulips and tell each other about the flowers that have newly appeared, and their days fade into a pale, wavering chiaroscuro, lit up by the past, only slightly frightened of the darkness of what is to come. Why is Philemon a magician? Does he conjure up immortality for himself, a life beyond? He is probably only a magician by profession, and he now appears to be a pensioned magician who has retired from service. His desirousness and creative drive have expired, and he now enjoys his well-earned rest out of sheer incapacity. Like every old man who can do nothing else than plant tulips and water his little garden. The magical rod lies in the cupboard together with the 6th and 7th books of Moses, and the wisdom of Hermes Trismegistus. Philemon is old and has become somewhat feeble-minded. He still murmurs a few magical spells for the well-being of bewitched cattle in return for some petty cash or a gift for the kitchen. But it is uncertain if these spells are still correct and whether he understands their meaning. It is also clear that it hardly matters what he murmurs, as the cattle might also get well on their own. There goes old Philemon in the garden, bent with a watering can in his shaking hand. Bacchus stands at the kitchen window and looks at him calmly and impassively. She has already seen this image 1,000 times, somewhat more infirm every time, feebler, seeing it a little less well every time, since her eyesight gradually has become weaker. I stand at the garden gate. They have not noticed the stranger. Philemon, old magician, how are you? I call out to him. He does not hear me, seeming to be stone deaf. I follow him and take his arm. He turns and greets me awkwardly and trembling. He has a white beard and thin white hair, and a wrinkled white beard and thin white hair and a wrinkled face, and there appears to be something about his face. His eyes are gray and old, and something in them is strange. One would like to say alive. I am well, stranger, he says, but what are you doing here? People tell me that you understand the black art. I am interested in that. Will you tell me about it? Philemon, what should I tell you about it? There is nothing to tell. Don't be ill-natured, old man. I want to learn. Philemon, you are certainly more learned than I. What could I teach you? Do not be mean. I certainly don't intend to become your competitor. I'm just curious to know what you are up to and what magic you are performing. Philemon, what do you want? In the past, I have helped people here and there who have been sick and disadvantaged. What exactly did you do? Philemon. Well, I did it quite simply with sympathy. I. Old man, what that word sounds comical and ambiguous. Philemon. How so? It could mean that you helped people either by expressing compassion or by superstitious, sympathetic means. Philemon. Well, surely it would have been both. And that's all there was to your magic? Philemon. There was more. What was it? Tell me. Philemon. That is none of your business. You are impertinent, pertinent, and meddlesome. Please don't take my curiosity badly. Recently, I heard something about magic that awakened my interest in this bygone practice, and that I came to you because I heard that you understand the black art. If magic were still taught today at university, I would have studied it there, but the last college of magic was closed long ago. Today, no professor knows anything anymore about magic. So do not be sensitive and miserly, but tell me a bit about your art. Surely you don't want to take your secrets with you to the grave, do you? Philemon. Well, all you will do is laugh anyway, so why should I tell you anything? It would be better if everything were buried with me. It can always be rediscovered later. It will never be lost to humanity, since magic is reborn with each and every one of us. What do you mean? Do you believe that magic is really inborn in man? Philemon. If I could, I would say yes, of course it is, but you will find this laughable. No, this time I will not laugh, because I have often wondered about the fact that all peoples in all times and in all places have the same magical customs. As you can see, I have already thought along the similar lines. Philemon. What do you make of magic? To put it plainly, nothing or very little. It appears to me that magic is one of the vain tools of men inferior to nature. I can detect no other tangible meaning in magic. Philemon. Your professors probably also know just as much. Yes, but what do you know about it? Philemon. I prefer not to say. Don't be so secretive, old man. Otherwise, I must assume that you know no more than I do. Philemon. Take it as you please. Your answer suggests that you most definitely understand more about it than others. Philemon. Comical fellow. How stubborn you are. But what I like about you is that your reason does not deter you. That's actually the case. Whenever I want to learn and understand something, I leave my so-called reason at home and give whatever it is that I am trying to understand the benefit of the doubt. I have learned this gradually because nowadays the world of science is full of scary examples of the opposite. Philemon. In which case you could do very well for yourself. I hope so. Now let us not stray from magic. Philemon. Why are you so determined about learning more about magic if you claim that you have left your reason at home? Or would you not consider consistency part of reason? I do. I see, or rather, it seems to me that you are quite an adept sophist who skillfully leads me around the house and back to the door. Philemon. It seems that way to you because you judge everything from the standpoint of your intellect. If you forsake reason for a while, you will also give up consistency. That's a difficult test. But if I want to be adept at some point, I suppose I ought to submit to your request. All right, I'm listening. Philemon, what do you want to hear? You're not going to draw me out. I'm simply waiting for whatever you are going to say. Philemon, and what if I say nothing? Well, then I'll withdraw somewhat embarrassed and think that Philemon is at the very least a shrewd fox who definitely would have something to teach me. Philemon, with this, my boy, you have learned something about magic. I'll have to chew on this. I must admit that this is somewhat surprising. I had imagined magic as being somewhat different. Philemon, well, this shows you how little you understand about magic and how incorrect your notion of it is. If this could be the case, or that's how it is, then I must confess that I approached the problem completely incorrectly. I gather from what you are saying that these matters do not follow ordinary understanding. Philemon, nor does magic. But you have not deterred me at all. On the contrary, I'm burning to hear even more. What I know up to now is essentially negative. Philemon, with this you have recognized a second main point. Above all, you must know that magic is the negative of what one can know. Okay, so let me reread that. You must know that magic is the negative of what you can know. Okay, that too, my dear Philemon, is a piece of knowledge that is hard to digest and causes me no small pain. The negative of what one can know? I suppose you mean that it cannot be known, don't you? This exhausts my understanding. Philemon, that is the third point that you must note as essential, namely, that there is nothing for you to understand. Well, I must confess that that is new and strange. So nothing at all about magic can be understood? Philemon, exactly. Magic happens to be precisely everything that eludes comprehension. But then how the devil is one to teach and learn magic? Philemon, magic is neither to be taught nor learned. It's foolish that you want to learn magic. But then magic is something but nothing but deception. Philemon, watch out. You have started reasoning again. It's difficult to exist without reason. Philemon, and that is exactly how difficult magic is. Well, in that case, it's hard work. I conclude that it is an inescapable condition for the adept that he completely unlearns his reason. Philemon, I'm afraid that is what it amounts to. Ye gods, this is serious. Philemon, not as serious as you think. Reason declines with old age, since it is an essential counterpart of the drives, which are much more intense in youth than in old age. Have you ever seen young magicians? No, the magician is proverbially old. Philemon, you see, I'm right. But then the prospects of the adept are bad. He must wait until old age to experience the mysteries of magic. If he gives up his reason, Philemon, if he gives up his reason before then, he can already experience something useful sooner. That seems to be a dangerous experiment. One cannot give up reason without further ado. Philemon, nor can one simply become a magician. You lay damnable snares. You lay damnable snares. Okay, this goes on a little bit longer, so I'll keep going until the end of this section. Philemon, what do you want, such as magic? Old devil, you make me envious of unreasoning old age. Philemon, well, well, a youth who wants to be an old man, and why? He wants to learn magic, and yet dares not to for the sake of his youth. Aye, you spread a terrible net, old trapper. Philemon, perhaps you should still wait a few years with magic until your hair has gone gray and your reason has slackened somewhat. I don't want to listen to your scorn. Stupidly enough, I got caught up in your yarn. I can't make sense of you. Philemon, but stupidity would perhaps be progress in the way of magic, in the way to magic. I, incidentally, what on earth do you intend to achieve with your magic? Philemon, I am alive, as you see. I, other old men are too. Philemon, yes, but have you seen how? I, well, admittedly, it was not a pleasant sight. Incidentally, time has left its mark on you too. Philemon, I know. I, so what gives you the advantage? Philemon, it doesn't exactly meet the eye. I, what kind of advantage doesn't meet the eye? Philemon, I call that magic. I, you're moving in a vicious circle. May the devil get the better of you. Philemon, well, that's another advantage of magic. Not even the devil gets the better of me. You're beginning to understand magic, so I must assume that you have a good aptitude for it. I thank you, Philemon. That is enough. I feel dizzy. Goodbye. I leave the small garden and walk down the street. People are standing around in groups and glancing at me furtively. I hear them whispering behind my desk. Look, there he goes, old Philemon's student. He spoke a long time with the old man. He has learned something. He knows the mysteries. If only I could do what he is able to do now. Be quiet, you damn fools. I want to call out to them, but I cannot, since I do not know whether I have actually learned anything. And because I remain silent, they are even more convinced that I have received the black art from Philemon. Okay, so I'll stop there. That was a long piece. There is an important footnote, but before we go to the footnote, I will ask Jordan and Kathy for comment.
Yeah, to me, what's interesting, a very, very long passage, but there's just this marrow of the matter of this reason, and then the magic. He's trying to reason that it's not reason. And the thing is, the thing that's a negative of a thing has nothing to do with the thing. So it's not a not thing. And so you have the reason, but then it's magic is your nature, what you are. Reason is what you can be, what you can know, what you can kind of grok. But the deep knowing in the gut, your nature, is the biggest piece to me here, because you can't go reason, unreason, then you're still the sophist route. You're still playing philosophy. And I think what's interesting is when he makes the statement, which page is this on? It's a long footnote page.
To 396.
Yeah, he says, no, this time I will not laugh, because I have often wondered about the fact that all peoples in all times and in all places have the same magical customs. As you can see, I have already thought along similar lines. So it's expressed in memory there, and history and lineage. But what I think really stands out to me is, and in all places have the same magical customs. Well, yeah, the earth still goes around the sun. This is a statement about nature. So what I make of the what is magic piece is it's essentially those unaffected parts of your nature that are intense as nature, and you molt and discover them. You don't achieve them. They're that wisdom of the ages that resides within your nature, literally, so that we're not trying to be a part of nature. We are nature. So just like if I look out the window and say, well, that tree has a job. Its job to be that tree. And so I have the same job. It's to be whoever, not that I can be, it's whoever I am. So there's more of an R than a striving attempt to be. And
Yes.
that's kind of what I'm getting from the magic piece, is really just, one word, capital N, nature. So your inner nature, and actionably how you emanate that nature. So the whole word abracadabra, I create as I speak, is how that means. And so what happens is it's not, incantation. I have to say this Latin word. I mean, if that happened and someone left a Ouija board on the floor, then, the Roomba would conjure up demons or something. I don't know. So anyway, I'll pause there.
Kathy?
I think it's packed with humor. A few blinders, maybe some narrow alleys, but overall, it seems like it's like the grappling of logos and arrows. And really, really cool. I disagree that magicians are proverbially old. I mean, who has less reason than kids? Kids know all about magic. Kids know the world is full, or animism, and that trees speak, and that there's fairies in the garden and things like that, right?
Yeah, children know everything, and then
don't they just? Yeah, and they're magical. They know that magic is afoot, and they don't mind that there's not an explanation for it. They're into the eros of it, and the liminal nature of it. Love that.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons that this passage is significant is because Jung had engraved over the door of his home in Kusnacht, not the one here, which is Bollingen, but his family home, the words in Latin, seen or not seen, the God will be present. God will be present. And so whether you see God or not, God will be there. Okay, so I'd like to read this footnote now, which in part explains this and how Philemon got the name Philemon from Dr. Jung. And so I'm on page 396. And let's, I will read the sentence that leads up to this footnote. This is where Philemon, the magician, lives with his wife, Bacchus. Philemon is one of those magicians who has not yet managed to banish old age, but who lives it with dignity, and his wife can only do the same. So the footnote reads, in the Metamorphosis, Ovid tells the tale of Philemon and Bacchus. Jupiter and Mercury wandered disguised as mortals in the hill country of Phrygia. They searched for somewhere to rest, but were barred by 1,000 homes. An old couple finally took them in. The couple had been married in their cottage in their youth, grew old together, and contentedly accepted their poverty. They prepared a meal for their guests. During the meal, the couple saw that the flagon automatically refilled itself as soon as it was emptied. In honor of their guests, the couple offered to kill their sole goose. The goose took refuge with the gods, who said that it should not be killed. Jupiter and Mercury then revealed themselves and told the couple that their neighborhood would be punished, but that they would be spared. They asked the couple to climb the mountain with them, When they reached the top, the couple saw that the country surrounding their cottage had been flooded and only their cottage remained. It had been transformed into a temple with marble columns and a gold roof. The gods asked what the couple would like, and Philemon replied that they would like to be their priests and serve in their shrine, and also that they could die at the same time. Their wish was granted, and as they died, they transformed into trees side by side. In Goethe's Faust II, Act 5, a wanderer who had previously been saved by them calls upon Philemon and Bacchus. Faust was in the process of building a city on land reclaimed from the sea. Faust proceeds to tell Mephistopheles that he wants Philemon and Bacchus moved. Mephistopheles and 3 mighty men go and burn the cottage with Philemon and Bacchus in it. Faust replies that he had only intended to exchange their dwelling. To Eckermann, Goethe recounted that my Philemon and Bacchus have nothing to do with the renowned ancient couple of the tradition connected with them. I gave this couple the names merely to elevate the characters. The persons and relations are similar, and hence the use of the names was a good effect. And then on June 7th, 1955, Jung wrote a letter to Alice Raphael, which refers to Goethe's comments to Eckermann. Ad Philemon and Bacchus, a typical Goethean answer to Eckermann, trying to conceal his vestiges. Philemon and Philema, he's translating the Greek here, and he says Philema equals kiss, the loving one, the simple old loving couple, close to the earth and aware of the gods, and the complete opposite of the Superman Faust, the product of the devil. Incidentally, in my tower at Bollingen is a hidden inscription, Philemon Sacrum Fausti Penitentia, Philemon Sanctuary, Faust's Repentance. When I first encountered the archetype of the old wise man, he called himself Philemon. In alchemy, PH and B represented the artifacts, or Virs Sapiens, and the sister Soror Mystica. Let's see. On Jung's inscription, see also his letter to Hermann Kaiserling, January 2nd, 1928. I guess that's what that was from. And on January 5th, 1942, Jung wrote to Paul Schmidt, I have taken over Faust as my heritage, and moreover as the advocate of Philemon and Bacchus, who, unlike Faust the Superman, are the hosts of the gods in a ruthless and God-forsaken age.
It's interesting to me too, the Soror Mystica, the sacred sisters, the mystical sisters, that appears in mythology repeatedly. I mean, you have the Moirai, M-O-I-R-A-I, which is, those are the 3 fates. So there's the mystical sisters, even in the Gorgon's head, Perseus and Medusa and Andromeda, when they have to go get the all-seeing eye from the 3 witch sisters. So to me, what's interesting is there's all this female Trinity character groups. There are all these female Trinity character groups, and that's the generative quality. That's the magic. That's the life-giving, and they hold the treasures. They hold the wisdom. but the wisdom is not the reason, it's the nature. So I think when he brings in Soror Mystica here, it's making not just an allusion to that, it's a star performance entering as the characters that are important here. So it's all, two dudes, Jung and Philemon, but then the Soror Mystica, they're on the fluid foundation of the generative.
Yeah. Okay. I think there's a meaning here which I want to get to, but I'm going to read 4 more footnotes.
Okay.
Footnote 265. In Psychological Type, in the course of a discussion of Faust, Jung wrote, "The magician has preserved in himself a trace of primordial paganism. He possesses a nature that is still unaffected by the Christian splitting, which means he has access to the unconscious, which is still pagan, where the opposites still lie in their original naive state, beyond all sinfulness, but if assimilated into conscious life, produce evil and good with the same primordial and consequently demonic force. Therefore, he is a destroyer as well as a savior. This figure is therefore preeminently suited to become the symbol carrier for an attempt at unification." And boy, do we see that in Israel and Pakistan, right? Or in Israel and Palestine right now. Okay, footnote 266. The 6th and 7th books of Moses, in addition to the 5 contained in the Torah, were published in 1849 by Johann Scheibel, who claimed that they came from ancient Talmudic sources. The work is a compendium of Kabbalistic magical spells, which has been enduringly popular. Footnote 267. The figure of Hermes Trismegistus was formed through the amalgamation of Hermes with the Egyptian god Thoth. The Corpus Hermeticum, a collection of largely alchemical and magical texts, dating from the early Christian era, but initially thought to have been much older, was ascribed to him. And footnote 268. In Goethe's Faust, Philemon speaks of his declining powers. Older, I could not lend a hand to the building of the dike, as once I did full well, and with my powers ebbing, the waters were pushed back. Okay. So those were the footnotes. What I think that this means, and it's a very important meaning, especially for Richard, is that we have to find a place for the God or the gods within ourselves. Okay, it isn't that God is out there. Okay, we can't see it. Our rationality protests with telescopes that now can see back to the beginning of what we call the universe today, and which we've been calling the universe, or has been our universe, let's say, for the last 13.8 billion years. We don't know what happened before then. And so the point is that all gods and God are true, and they all live within our heart. And like Philemon and Bacchus, we need to make a room for them, a place for them in our hearts. And that's what Philemon and Bacchus did. Of course, Jupiter and Mercury were decided that they'd have a little vacation down on Earth as mortals, and they found everybody shutting them out and not accepting them. But Philemon and Bacchus found a place in their heart for the gods, because the wine flask never emptied, and the goose hid with the gods, and so
what's interesting about that.
I just want to make one more point. We look at Palestine right now, and these people have been cut off from water and food for 10 days, fresh water, and yet somehow they seem to be surviving. And one could analogize this to the Sermon on the Mount, where there were 5 fishes and 2 loaves of bread, but somehow 5,000 people got fed at the Sermon on the Mount. So, all right, so go ahead, Jordan.
Well, it aligns right with what you're talking about: origin, universe, kind of origin of the universe concepts. A wonderful friend of mine 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, recently. I love it. And as we age, it's in the past. So sometime recently, showed me this wonderfully magical stone called Nummite, Nuummite, and it's the oldest mineral on the planet, 3-4 billion years old, and it's only found pretty much in Greenland. And then, honestly, you'll get a kick out of this in spotty parts of Maryland. And so you look at Pangea and how things separated, the lesser pockets, in the East Coast near you. But it's this wonderful stone, and it has all these blues, these ceruleans, and other colors that it just almost dichroic, reflecting. But it's got this long chemical structure, but it feels like it's one of those, when this activated, when this stone united with oxygen, the magnesium and the iron flashed in a way to birth the environment for life. And so instead of the Big Bang, I'm starting to look at the Nummite origin of the universe, and whether I just make it up as folklore, it doesn't matter to me, because honestly, it's a wonderful sandbox to play.
We need to ask.
Is that Nummite? What is that?
Kathy.
Is that Nummite?
We cannot hear you, Kathy. We cannot hear you, Kathy. We cannot hear you. Try again.
It doesn't look like your mute's on, but we can't hear you. Maybe did the volume turn down?
Hello.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And as Kathy says, we could read this like a play in parts. And
I think she was holding up a piece of Nummite. Is that?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And you have Nummite as well.
Yeah, it's a bracelet that I keep in my pocket now.
Huh. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'll have to pictures. It's in the sun, it looks completely dark in the shade. There's not a whole lot there, but when you get it in the sun, you really just start to get this magical character from within it.
Right. So Nasreen Samad asked the question, why was it said the subconscious is pagan? And I think that the answer to that must be because the subconscious existed before we were conscious. Remember Jung's dictum that the sole purpose of human or consciousness is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. And so we, most creatures operate unconsciously. They do what they do because they do it, and because their parents have done it, and the parents show them how to do it, and then they do it.
Well, and I think, speaking directly to piggyback on that, that it's the subconscious or unconscious is pagan because it's nature, it's natural.
Yes.
And Jung, actually, in a footnote that I don't think we've either gotten to or we went over, said that the magic is that part of you unaffected by Christianity or consciousness. So that's your nature. So that, I think that would, if that speaks to your question about why is the subconscious indicated as pagan? Well, pagan is an earth nature connection, quote unquote religion. I think paganism is a Christian description of the fact that people who live on the land and actually are connected to nature, who actually, they don't need a title. They don't care. They're going to go plant the tulips and they're going to harvest and etc. So I'd say the pre-labels, pre-influence of too much consciousness, where these days kind of crack level addiction to certainty and reasons can be unreasonable.
Right. And Nazreen, I would suggest that the word, I've replaced the word subconscious with the word unconscious, okay? Because Dr. Jung's point is that the unconscious is really unconscious. In other words, we don't know why our heart beats, but it beats. Okay. Right? We don't think about it. We don't think about our breathing, and we don't think about the exchange of new cells for old cells, which occurs throughout our lifetime. That's all done unconsciously. And so that's where the pagan is. Subconscious means that you're just not thinking about it right now. Okay. And so it's I can say a word, any word, and you're not thinking about it right now, but as soon as I mention it, everybody will have the idea of what it is in their head, and it won't be beneath consciousness anymore. It's subconscious, but everybody knows it. So you can pick any word for this demonstration, but the word that I often use is elephant, and the elephant in the room, because none of you were thinking about an elephant before I said this word, but nonetheless, the elephant was there and always was there. So, so everybody knows what I mean without me showing a picture of an elephant. And these things change. I think I have to show you my picture of a kidding. Just a moment. I keep this on my desk to remind me. This is a kidding, and this is a kind of beer from Japan. I'm going to turn off my cloaking for a moment. Okay, there you go. All right. So this is a bottle of Kirin Ichiban. And this creature looks to us in the West something like a dragon. Does anybody know what this creature is, in fact? Can you guess? The Kirin. It actually exists. All of you know what this creature is when I tell you. Okay, and it's very popular beer in Japan, Kirin beer. Kirin, and this is Kirin Ichiban, which is a Kirin #1. This is what they export as Kidding beer. Nobody knows. Okay, well, this is a giraffe. Okay, and the reason it looks like this is because when Marco Polo came to China in the 14th century, he described a giraffe. And by the old telephone game, one person talked to another person and described a giraffe over several hundred years. And by the time it got to Japan, this is a giraffe. Okay. So for what it's worth. And now I've lost your voice.
Mute.
Okay.
Yeah, damn the grapevine. So
Yep. So anyway, things change, whatever. There's Kathy back. Okay, good. All right, now I'll go back to my virtual background. All right, so I keep that within arm's reach, basically, because it's an excellent demonstration.
that's a great example of how symbols are generative, and so that they're naturally always transforming, because the actual what it is described was generated as a description, and then someone else gets what they get from the symbol, and then so on and so on, and none of it's wrong. It's all the isness of what that is. So things are not what they can be, what they are now. And I think that's a really good example of how the evolution of something is not it changing, it's just generating anew or differently.
Right. Well, yeah. So Mela says even in paganism there is good and evil. Well, assuredly that's correct, because a bullet traveling toward you at faster than the speed of sound can either be good because it misses you, or evil because it hits you between the eyes. And
so yeah, I think that goes back to the magic. So if we even get off the label pagan and get back to nature, well, once you get back to nature, it's not good and evil anymore. There's no shame or guilt or judgment. It simply is. The volcano erupting, destructive, etc. Well, it is. It's creating new lands. It's not evil.
Right. And Richard says pagans worship only the multitude of lower energies, perhaps thinking they're not worthy, of worshiping the ultimate. Well,
isn't the ultimate
the ultimate might
by
be
worshiping
nature.
Small, you have divinely engaged the large.
Right. And so women were burned as witches because, among other things, because they were intuitive and they could read people's minds. They knew how to do it. And, I know how to do it. I know how to listen to the collective. And I listened to the collective very carefully during Confluence, and I'm very optimistic about the future. Now, my friend Lana said her family, who did live in northern Gaza, is now living on the street, and she hasn't had contact with them for 2 weeks. And that's horrific. That's a horrific situation. Can you imagine? And their whole neighborhood has been destroyed by Israeli bombs. And so can you imagine your community being destroyed by bombs from somebody, and you being forced to live out on the street with no source of water or food? What do you do? How would you go about living? So
Well, and there's the base
So
of that.
that's evil. Okay. However, when there's this iniquity, as the Bhagavad Gita says, the God of stable society, of Dharma, in the Bhagavad Gita's terms, will manifest out of this horrible time and will produce for us a symbol of how to move forward. We don't know what that symbol is yet, but it will happen.
Well, and I'll say too, all murder is wrong. And the ecclesiastical, dogmatic, philosophical, whatever group, murder is wrong. And I think what's interesting is it's not nature. I mean, a cheetah doesn't murder an antelope. I mean, it's a whole different thing. That's a difference.
You know, in fairness, I would say neither the Palestinians nor the Israelis are murdering one another right now because of religion. They are murdering one another because of power, the power devil.
Well, that's to me another any dogmatic system, a love of power. The problem with love of power is it means you've rarely had any. It's not that fascinating. There's a power of love, and that has power dynamics in it. But power itself is pretty much like fish scales. I don't want them on my plate. And the thing is, there's no authority in power. There's just a blustery, loud, I'm in charge kind of stuff. And so even if they're doing the power, well, then that power is their new church. That's an ecclesiastical, dogmatic, philosophical. It's like dignity and difference grow up. It's childish instead of with a childlike magical connection. So I'll kick my soapbox off and step off of it. But I just find the whole situation atrocious, egregious, and frankly, it makes me angry and sad that people just won't grow up to be who they are, and they have to go take it out on somebody else.
So Richard asked the age-old question, dating back to pre-Christian times, why worship a goat? Okay, well, I'm reminded of the old saying, ours is not to reason why, ours is but to do and die. I don't know why people chose to worship a goat or a cow, or have an image of an elephant head with a human body, as Ganesha is, with 4 arms and so on. I don't know why those visions came out and ultimately made their way into art. But I do know that Ganesha is a very symbolic god, because he represents work. In one of his hands, he holds a hammer, and he has at his feet a mouse, which he eats. In his other hand, Ganesha has a bowl that has grain in it, and as he eats the grain, some falls off and it goes down to this mouse that's at his feet, and that represents the round of life, and so nothing is wasted, and so on. And there's a couple of other hands, and I haven't looked at the meanings precisely right now.
I would say, in terms of, instead of why worship a goat, I would say why worship anything. You don't need to choose to worship anything, because frankly, that's putting something outside yourself on a pedestal. Yeah. And if you put something on a pedestal, it makes it that much easier for your teeth to get kicked right down your throat. And then that's no good.
So, so in any case, I don't I don't question anyone's religious upbringing. And the reason I don't is because I know they're all true, and they all have been proven by evolution in that community, whatever it is. And our founding fathers in the United States had the wisdom to say that you can't discriminate against people because of religion and how they worship and so on. And we know that. We've known that lesson now for over 250 years, or nearly 250 years, 248 years. And so we probably knew it for 500 years before that as well, that it just doesn't make any difference. But people like to whip people up to gain power by using one religion against another, and
distraction.
Yeah, and they come up with ways to make people hate one another or whatever. But the reality is that we can't. We live in a society in the United States where on any given moment you may run into an American who's any one of a couple hundred different nationalities of origin and speaks a different language than you and so on, but you're all American still. As Morningstar says, thy will be done, Lord, because we can't be trusted. And so in any case, Thomas says the Red Book involves the introduction of magic via Philemon. Well, yeah, we're on page 395 before Philemon even gets into the Red Book. So that's not, it's a little bit more complicated than, okay, so this section of the Red Book involves the introduction of magic via Philemon. Okay, thank you, Richard. Thomas, thank you. I misread that and gave an unfair meaning to what you said. And John Z says, Ganesha's mouse doesn't complain much, I suppose. Yeah, probably not, because
Mana from the heavens.
Yep,
like
that's
the same story. It's the same story.
God will provide. And if God,
right to the mouse,
whether God is a human with a elephant's head or whatever, he's a God because he's feeding me. But anyway, and Richard goes back to his insistence upon Christianity, but not except Christianity had prophecies that Jesus fulfilled all of them. It's not, I'm biased without obvious reason. Okay, well, there are reasons, Richard, and you're entitled to your reasons, but I think Dr. Jung said in some of his writings that Jesus also knew what those prophecies were and knew how to play to those. He had the script. In other words, Isaiah had prophesied things 500 years before, and Jesus was well aware of those prophecies and in effect had the script that he was playing. And so,
but when he turns his back, all he's doing is reaching into the robe for the little yellow and black Cliff's notes.
Yeah, that's right.
What do I do next?
And Thomas, if you don't have the Red Book, you must get one. As you see, mine over the years has gotten completely worn down and completely filled with tabs and completely filled with underlining. and it's an extremely important book in my view. That's why we spent so much time on it. So we're going to stop at this point because we've already gone over, and we'll continue with this chapter on the magician. As I said, I expect it to take us another couple of months to get through it.
That's about right.
And then we're going to get into the scrutinies, which include the 7 sermons to the dead. But anyway, we're currently 3/4 of the way through the Red Book, according to my calculation. And it's a reason for me to get up every Sunday morning and do something. So here I am. And let's see what Thomas says. Thomas is an old friend of mine whose book we promoted at one point. My former therapist let me borrow her giant copy for a few months some years ago. Okay, well, you need a hand copy, because then you'll read it. I had a big one, was given to me by my wife for Christmas in 2010, I think, and I found it very difficult to read because it's a sacred book that I didn't even want to despoil in any way. And I even have built a podium for it up in my living room. And so I bought the reader's edition so that I could beat it up and underline it and so on. And so the original Red Book I got is still in pretty much semi-mint condition. But anyway, Jonty, I'm sorry to hear you say that, but don't worry. We're giving you the Red Book week by week, so you don't need to buy it. So anyway, peace, everyone. We'll see you next week, and congratulations to Jordan for.
Well, thank you so much. I'm grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome.